Student of the game comes from the mindset that decrees we will be genuinely curious, constantly evolving, and obsessed with the process of learning and growing. I've often operated with the mindset that the game of football is constantly evolving, and we will either grow with it or become extinct. It is our expectation that we separate from those we have passed and to catch those that are still operating above us. This podcast offers a source for those that believe in constant evolution of their knowledge, individual craft, and overall intrigue in the game of football. Hope each of you can find one tool that can help improve your off-season process as you continuously become students of the game. Welcome in to the Student of the Game podcast brought to you by the Coach and Coordinator series. Today we have another special guest, someone that I've met, I believe through the COVID shutdown is when we really got to start talking via Zoom. And you might even remember how we connected when we break into it, but is someone that's really special to me that I've gotten to watch grow through this profession over the last 5 or 6 years, have been able to directly connect with and talk football with. We've even gotten to, I've got to recruit some of your players from people that you've met and had a big time impact with, but somebody that I believe is, the truest essence of what it means to be a student of the game. And that guest today is Chet Walters. He's the head coach of Conrad Schools of Science in Delaware. Chet, how's it going, man?
What's up, Caleb? Appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, I always like to give the listeners just a brief deal of what makes the guest so special or intriguing to me. And again, I think that through all of our connections, I believe that we both say we've developed a friendship. We've met in person once. Is that right? You drove, I think you're going to St. Louis and you stopped in Cincinnati?
Once or twice, yes. So yeah, funny story there, but yes.
Yes, so we did that. And then the convention, right? We got together. So we twice. What I think is so cool about this era of coaching is you can get to know somebody like there's someone you grew up with or went to college with and you've only met them once or twice. But again, I mentioned it in the intro, and to me, Chet, what really makes you so intriguing and inspiring for me is when I first met you, you obviously had an intrigue and a mind for the game that was as high level as any of the guys that I've been exposed to. But you're doing the place that you're doing all this at over the last 4 years is at a small school in Delaware that I'll let you kind of speak on as far as what football is or isn't there or what the history of that program's been. But just talking to you offline, over these last 4 years in this situation, something I think is really a great insight into what you're doing, but just proof that you are, a true teacher of the game is, you took a quarterback that you got, he ended up being a 4-year starter for you, but you took a quarterback that had never played football before at a place that hadn't had football success. And through the journey of your intrigue for the game, you guys had your first playoff appearance in school history. And on top of that, you helped develop and tutor this quarterback to being a 7,000-yard passer and accumulating over 76 touchdowns in that time span. And just hearing that, knowing that you are, as high caliber of a coach as any of the college guys that I've talked with, but seeing you do it in a situation like this and developing belief into not only the kids, but an entire, school district, I think it just backs up what I thought about you from the first moment that we talked, and I believe is QBIQ. I think I had you on
exactly
in COVID. Yep. So, man, that's what you mean to me, and you're a great person and a great, student of the game, and that's what we're going to dive into today. But just seeing what you've done as you kind of outline your journey, we'll let you kind of tell the listeners a little bit about the situation and what the school is that you're at and kind of what you've been able to develop. But without further ado, I kind of want to just let you dive in and talk about your journey in coaching and kind of how you got here.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of things you just said there have been really cool to experience, and there's no doubt that there's a handful of people that need to be mentioned that are involved in that. I mean, as you started talking about the 7,000 yards and all that, I thought about our receivers. I thought about Blaine Price, our receiver coach, who played at Widener back in the day and has been coaching with us since day one when we got the job 4 years ago. I think about those guys and the time and the effort that they've put into to travel this same journey and grow at the same time that myself and the quarterback were growing. But yeah, so I've got a little bit different of a path than probably most people, but everything really kind of started in 2014. I was quality control at University of Delaware on the defensive side with some great guys. There's a handful of those coaches that are now in various places that I still keep in contact with, and they've had great success. That was really, I think, when my love for wanting to learn started. If I really went back, I was the kid that not only played like the NCAA game and the Madden game, but there was one year in there they made this head coach game, and it was EA Sports, and I got that. And I was trying to tell our players a couple weeks ago that I was like, guys, there was this game that you didn't even play. Like, you didn't even do anything on the field, but you did everything else. And they were looking at me like I'm crazy, which they do on a daily basis. And that sparked something in me. So really looking back, I could say at a young age that I was a student of the game, and that's really what triggered all that. But yeah, 14, 15 at University of Delaware, quality control, really focused on defensive side of the ball and helped with scout teams. And I've still got right behind me in the drawer here, all of these charts, laminated charts from game day of what we recorded and why we recorded it. I remember if I didn't have an answer about certain things at halftime, it was trouble. So that was really when it started diving in to learn of like, what is this thing? This isn't just a football game. There's all of these different intricacies of what makes it all work. So that was an incredible experience. That was for a year, a little over a calendar year. And then, yeah, I mean, kind of a wild story. I was down in Florida, didn't know what I was going to do. Weird enough, I was actually camping out down in the Florida Keys. I didn't know if I was going to go coach college or not. And actually had an offer to go coach running backs at a new school in Michigan for $8,000. And I was like 25, and I was just kind of a little wild. And I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to stay down here. And so I started coaching at the high school down in Florida, and coached at different high schools in Florida. Met some great people, some great players that I'm still in touch with. But, fast forward, a couple of those guys that potentially wanted to hire me are now coaching in Power 4 conference and doing all that. So don't regret anything, but just funny to look back at that decision at that point in time. But yeah, coached at a couple different high schools in Florida, and then really kind of got into the, if you will call it, the private side of football and training and all that with a guy named Chris Hickson and QBIQ. And that was a really fun journey. Chris is awesome. He developed an incredible program with QBIQ. So we started training quarterbacks and had this booklet and program to help coaches and players really be a student of the game. And so that's where, really looking back at it, like, that was such a fitting place for me to be in that environment of just constantly learning, constantly trying to find different ways or to improve. So really cool experience doing that with QBIQ. And then kind of naturally for a lot of people, COVID happened and didn't know what the future was going to hold. Ended up moving back to Delaware and stumbled into opening for the head job at Conrad Schools of Science, who at the time, 4 years ago, the principal was one of my assistant principals in high school. So interviewed with him, got the job, and here we are 4 years later at Conrad and doing some cool things. So it's been a lot of fun, a lot of twists and turns, definitely unorthodox, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, I think it's important for people listening, because there will be a lot of people, obviously no one has the same path as you or I or anyone else, but there's other guys that have traveled similar paths to yourself. And I think it's, great to hear just your different, mindsets at each of those stops. But I believe that when we connected, it was through the first quarterback you coaching in an all-star game. And it was
absolutely Chayton
Tomlin, who, shout out to Chayton, big reason why stud, right? I'm sure he'll listen to this, but and then I remember it was during the COVID break. He had graduated and he suggested that we get in contact with you. And I'm pretty specific with quarterback instruction, but I just remember the way he saw you and said, hey, you're going to like this guy. Like you need to connect with this guy. And so I think I remember doing that and having you on that Zoom and just listening. I think I just gave you the floor, which I don't know how people have gotten the floor with the quarterbacks I've worked with. And
I probably didn't deserve it at that time, but that was a lot of fun. And coaching Chayton was a ton of fun, even for like 3 days. I was like, I'll tell you real quick, I walked into the hotel lobby for that Podium All-Star game. I thought he was like one of the operations guys. Like I thought he was helping carry things and get people checked in. And then he was one of the quarterbacks. I was like, holy cow, who is this kid? And then we got out on the field, and that was a ton of fun for sure.
And that's Chayton. We could do a whole podcast in Chayton, but 5'9", 150 and 10,000-yard passer, and he obviously could do it in any setting. But I just remember listening to you in that setting, and honestly, I just sitting back and listening, I knew right then that there was a guy that had a genuine intrigue, not only for yourself. I could sense that, hey, this is what makes me go, but in helping other people, which to that point, we really didn't know each other, and you didn't know those kids you were talking to, but you gave up that time. So I think that's a great example of it. And you've mentioned a couple, but I just want to hear in your words, again, this idea of this podcast is, the student of the game mentality and what it means. But from your perspective, these are things that you and I've talked about a lot of times off air, but I want other people to hear your perspective on what it actually means to be that student of the game.
Yeah. So real quick, the statement that you just said of helping others or helping teach others, just to go on that real quick, is there's something that sparks some type of fire or flame in me doing that, because I'm an average athlete. I was an average athlete. I couldn't do what a lot of the guys that I coach do. So there's something in me that wants to help them be the best that they can be, just knowing that it's not something that I was able to do. So however you want to spin that, there's a fire there of like, I want to make these guys as best as they can possibly be. And so whether maybe there's a little bit of kind of living vicariously through them or not, it's all from good of like, I'm here to help you. But yes, student of the game, I think I've heard you use the word obsession before. And so there's definitely an obsession with the game of football. If you walk into our house at any moment, we've got 3 kids and a big dog running around. At any point, there's football on one of the TVs, or there's football on one of my computer screens. It's a constant thing. There's a notepad by my bed on my side of the bed. It's just this constant thing that's in my brain of what's going on, or how to get better, or that's cool, or I never would have thought of it that way. Or, what's fun too is watching clips or coming across clips for me, is watching clips of coaches coach in practice.
Yes.
Of oh wow, like that makes total sense. I want to try to do that, or I want to look at that further and see why they're doing that. How can I incorporate that? So it's a kind of an all the time thing. Not so much recently, just had a baby, so I've got my mind somewhere else. But during the season, there are times where I literally wake up in the middle of the night. I dream about it. I dream about the game plan. I dream about, well, is this motion really going to do anything to the is this going to put the defense in the place that we want them or not? So it's kind of an all the time thing. And again, I think being the student of the game and my version of obsessed with it goes back to, I want to and need to be really, really good at this aspect so that I can help the people who are physically doing it be the best that they can be.
That's fantastic. That's well said. I love that. I think I hear a lot of myself and you going all the way back to, we could do a podcast on the EA Sports head coach game, where it's like, especially this generation, I'm sure there are people in this generation like you and I, but like to not play the game, but focus on the strategy and the building, like that's a whole different mindset.
Exactly.
And funny enough, like that, I resonate with that pretty directly. So not only, obviously the reason you're on here is I do believe that you are one of the truest essence of what it means to be a student of the game. What I kind of want to go through is, to me, what really makes someone special when it comes to learning the game is not only actually going and gaining that information, but the processes with which they do it. And that's some of the stuff that I kind of want to dive into, just so other people, whether they're new into coaching or, every once in a while you get an off season where you're stuck of like, how do I do this? Like, where does this next inspiration come from? I think you're providing, there's always inspiration, everywhere, but talking about, we've kind of mentioned some of our interactions, but for you, and as you look over the last couple years, when it comes to mediums that you'll use to investigate topics in the off season, what are the ones that resonate with you the most?
So yeah, there's a ton. Recently, again, like I said, with a newborn, I kind of sit there scrolling through Twitter, and my Twitter is just straight football. The bookmarks feature has become like my scroll, like my Rolodex, if you will. And so what I'll do is I'll go through something and I'll literally, I'll be on my phone, I'll just bookmark it. And then when I have time, I get to my desk or my office or whatever, then I actually open it up on my computer and go through all of those bookmarks. And if it's a graphic, if it's words, then I save those things and I put them in a certain area on my Google Drive. If they're clips, like what I've started to do is to tie in Google Drive is take clips from Twitter. I have them categorized based on concepts in Google Drive, and I put them in there that maybe I might not do or we might not do right now, but now it's in the bag. It's there that we can always tap back into. And then essentially what that creates is a funnel process of the Twitter bookmarks to Google Drive, and then whatever we're really going to do, I put into Huddle for our team. And so it creates a natural like selection process of what we're going to use and what we're going to do. So bookmarks has become just an everyday thing. And so then, like I said, Google Drive, using what's great about it, obviously, is it's sharing it with our staff, and we separated offense and defense and things like that. And so they have access and they're able to see those things live, real time. So those two have been really good. And then this here, friendships and relationships, through our relationship. Last year, we were coming into this past season, we were talking about outside zone. You hooked me up with Andrew Weeks. It was one of your former players and coaches. We jumped on a Zoom with him. He was awesome. So like things like that are connections of connections, or finding guys that are really willing to share and help out and be involved. And those are big too. One of my goals is to do more of that, is to reach out to guys more. I would be remiss if I didn't shout out Marcel Quarterman. He's the offensive coordinator at Kutztown. The success that they've had the last couple of years is phenomenal. Of a Final Four appearance and then an undefeated season this year. He is one of the best. He has taken hours out of his time to I'll just drive up and sit with him, and we go over all different kinds of things. And I think a friendship has been created from that as well. But guys like that, tapping into people like that are very similar to you and I, that could talk about this stuff all day long. And then, the other regular things of YouTube, guys who are doing the YouTube analysis, QB School, and all the other guys that are doing stuff. And then Bobby Peters, the books, all the manuals and the breakdowns that he does. I haven't gotten through the several that I have right now, but I think that I'm a football nerd, and then I read that and I'm like, holy cow, this guy's wild. So it's great stuff. And then obviously like Dan Casey, all the things that he puts out there. So finding ways to go look at all of that and then putting it into that funnel process of Google Drive, and then what are we actually going to present to the team?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I love hearing the funnel process because, to me, like I met Bobby last summer, and I walked away saying the same thing where I'm like, I love this. I feel like I've studied a lot of this stuff, but this dude, if I need an answer on something quick, I'll shoot Bobby a text like, hey, what are they doing in this bunch set? Kevin O'Connell doing in this, but what's the new thing? And he's done that for me over the last 5 years. He's one of the guys that really helped me solidify a lot of the off-season study of the option the option route cut-ups just from the NFL stuff. But I love the funnel process, and I think that that's critical, whether you're an experienced coach or not, with the excess of information that exists right now. It's certainly a very good thing for our generation of coaches, but I think the critical thing is, how do you take that information and compartmentalize it? Because without that, it can be an overabundance. And I think that's real. I love the flow that you have, because I actually do the bookmark system, but I don't take it and translate it the way you do. So I think I'm going to add that system this offseason to take it even further and get the most out of those bookmarks. I think that's big time. All right. So now I kind of want to go into some of your taking this information and some of the pathways that you've gotten and how you get this stuff implemented. Because like we said earlier, I think that my dad was a high school coach. I think the most of high school coaches, because of all the hats they have to wear, obviously teaching young people the game. And obviously you have people that love the game, but there's very few people in the entire profession that obsess over it the way that you do. So when you think about the student athletes, like, it's almost impossible for them to study the game that the way you or I or any coach that puts the time in, right? It's just a different stage of life. So when we really got together, I remember it was a couple of years ago, you really started investigating the option route stuff. And I think that's obviously I'm biased to it, but watching you implement it at the high school level at a very low, the smallest level of football in Delaware, at a place that hadn't had success. And I can almost guarantee that these kids had never been exposed to that type of offense. I mean, that's the same way in college. Like when you introduce option routes, they've never seen it most places. So can you just kind of go through the intrigue of that concept, how you collected that information, and then kind of bleed it into like the implementation of it? Because to me, that's what shows the craft of your ability, is what you've done these last 4 years, and doing it with really high level concepts, but making sure that it fits the place and the people that you're currently working with.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, and this, it's kind of like old school, like when I was in high school watching Duke basketball. You live by the three, you die by the three. So it's kind of like looking at the personnel that we had, and we had this quarterback that could throw it, and he was working hard at being a good thrower. We weren't going to be bigger than anybody. We weren't going to be faster than anybody. Is of using these option routes as a passing version of the triple option. As a passing version of what you see many high schools doing in the Flexbone, winning state championships and things like that. So it was like looking at our guys and saying, okay, how are we going to be able to use the kids that we have who are very smart kids and can pick up and understand things, but they may not be able to physically just beat somebody. And so watching what you guys were doing, and when we met and started looking at things like that, I said, okay, well, if we can start to teach these option routes, it could become our version of the triple. And so the implementation of it really became like, this is what we're going to do. And if we're not good at it, this is what we're going to do. And at some point, we will be good at it. And looking at film from 3 years ago, is really when we so not this season, but 3 seasons ago, is really when it started. And like, I watched film and I'm like, we didn't have any clue what we were doing. It was like, I didn't know what I was doing. The players didn't know what we were doing, and it was clear. And so then eliminating variables, it came down to like, it's this or this, and that's it. And if we're wrong, it's one of those two things. And that's really where QBIQ kind of helped the development of all that process too. So we running choice and running goof, with the slot option and running option outside, it became a way for us to get our kids excited about learning it because it gave them freedom. So it's a little bit like the classroom, right? Of you giving the student or the player ownership of some things, that increases their investment. And so again, as you mentioned, we're small school, never a history of winning in football, and so one of the things that I said when I got hired was that this is a human development program disguised as a football team with a side of rock concert. And so like that became choice and goof, and those things became our kind of rock concert. And then this year, Juke was a big one for us. I exchanged texts and videos with you throughout the season of us really executing that well. So it was a commitment thing, and saying this is what we're going to do, and really trusting our quarterback that he was going to be the guy to do it because that was his skill set. And now we've got, I texted you this year about a receiver that we have. He's going to be a senior next year. That is just like a wizard. He is just totally invested and become this obsessed person about route running and how to get open. And because he's 5'9", 162 pounds. He's not going to run by anybody, but dude had 600 receiving yards this year, second team All-State. So those are the things that's like, okay, this can work, and that's where we just kind of put our hook in, and that was it.
Yeah. I think that obviously I'm a little biased to the success that you guys have based on what you're running. To me, watching, what's most impressive is not only did you put it in, you took the chance, because there's a lot of people that with this particular scheme, but it could be any scheme, pick any scheme that pick the triple, right? Like you said, there will be some apprehension, whether it's from other coaches, the players are going to be like, what are you saying to me? And then obviously, not that it matters, but outside people looking in when a kid breaks left and the ball gets thrown right, and they're like, what the heck's Coach Walters even doing out there? Right?
Yep.
So I think the commitment to it is great, but then hearing how you tiered the teaching based on who you had, to me, that's where this intrigue and true implementation from your craft as a student of the game comes in. So let's go back into maybe it's after year one and you're evaluating this concept. What things did you do to help you find that next bit of improvement for the concept? And then what things did you apply to help enhance it so it could be a 2.0 version of itself that next year?
Yeah. So what I'll tell you this, what I wish I would have done is the adjusted efficiency study. I wish I would have done that, actually broke it down after year one, after year two. There was a mental part of going through that, but never actually writing anything down of like actually how successful were we? Why were we successful, or what didn't make us successful? And so what I'll say is, like, after year one of running those concepts, it was kind of like looking at the film and saying that this can work against anybody, any week. We may have to change how we get to it or who's running it, but it was something that's this is what we want to carry. This is what we want to be. So then it's what we ran in the spring. It's what we ran in our 7-on-7 league all summer. There were the old school Mike Leach, like there's been practices. All we ran was choice. Is all we did. That was the only pass play that we ran that day. And so I think spending more time on it as we progressed on a day-to-day basis, like literally taking just a day to run choice, just taking a day to run goof, and being patient enough to say that that's okay, and not saying that we've got to get all these other things in. And fast forwarding to this year actually was a big testament to, less can be more a lot of the time. And so there was that, just spending more time on those couple of things and being okay if it was wrong, if somebody was wrong. Yeah. So that was just the, matriculation of telling our guys, this is what we're going to do. We're going to spend a lot of time on it. It's okay if you're wrong, because at some point you're both going to be right at the same time. So yeah, it's nothing sexy. It's not like we said, oh, we're going to do this magic thing and then it's going to work. It was literally all spring, all 7-on-7 during the summer, all training camp. And there were days where I'm like, dude, we are terrible at this. We can't do it. I was like, we can't do this. And then, receivers coach talked me off the ledge and quarterback talked me off the ledge. And then we stuck with it. And so it's been something that's really, really good for us. And now the next piece would be consistency. That would be the next piece that we're going to be working on.
Yeah, and what I hear in that is I love it. I wrote compartmentalizing concepts. I think that's really important, especially in the teaching phase. You mentioned it, but when it came to being okay with working through one concept, especially when it was not a finished product by any means, off air, you talked about this idea forced you guys to teach the game. Right? Can you just talk a little bit about in those moments as you're educating these guys, not necessarily what you're educating them on, but the mindset of how you thought that would provide the value needed where, like you said, it's okay to be wrong. I think there's a lot of times that, we're putting in something new and we run it and it looks horrible. And you and I as play callers are like, nope, that's out onto this thing that I've done so long. But like talking about being a teacher of the game, you studied the concepts, you obsessed over them. We did multiple hour-plus Zooms on it, and like you said, you met with many different people. But talk about just the education piece and how valuable that was into it, but kind of how you made that part of what made you guys successful.
Yeah, so part of that is our receivers coach, Blaine Price. He is just a cerebral person, and so there was so much trust that I was able to give to him in what we wanted our receivers to do. He played receiver. He set Maryland state records in high school and then played D3. And so he could really teach them the feel of the things that we wanted to perform at. And because he'd been there, he had done those things. So he was really able to teach those guys post-snap what it wanted to feel like or where their eyes should be and things like that. And then the collaborative effort of pre-snap was being able to teach what coverages are, what this defense is going to be playing against us this week. We know what they're going to roll into or do. I mean, it's the level of football that we're playing and coaching at it's not Georgia. Like there's not these crazy exotic schemes. So teaching our guys to have eyes up and being able to find space and find grass and watching defenders move instead of just running a line that was drawn on the whiteboard, teaching you a concept. I just show them a video. Like I don't really even draw the play on the board because then they're like, well, coach, you told me to draw this line. No, I don't want you to just run that line. I want you to see how when this defender gets closer to the box, then you staircase your route a little bit more. Things that were just had to be done on the field, had to be a million reps. But what came from it is that we've got kids now that were not necessarily football players. They played football. They weren't like live and die and breathe football kids. Now are able to run routes with understanding of what's happening and why it's happening. And that goes from a senior all the way down to freshman. We started two freshmen this year at receiver. And so what I think about is how good those kids are going to be in 2 years, at all things, because they're learning the game of football and not just, well, coach called dagger. Well, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. Or what are we trying to accomplish? So it really was just let's all just get out onto the field together and start putting people in places and moving them. And then you've got to find where the open spot is or where the grass is. And so it just became a kind of like a pickup basketball environment that was a trial by error. And then, some kids obviously got it faster than others. And then we just rolled with that. Then we were able to start to really hone in on things. I go back to like what I find sometimes is some kids that we get in the middle school program or high school program, I call it, they don't have backyard awareness. Like we're lacking some backyard awareness where a kid who may not have ever played football before that's got some backyard awareness, he could just go run around and find space and make a catch or make a tackle. So essentially what we're doing is teaching backyard awareness through these option concepts. And then just get more detailed and go from there.
I love it. I think that to me, the things that I'm valuing in this process is you taking your mindset for wanting to learn new concepts. And so people don't think that we throw the ball 100 times a game, which I get. People think that about me, that I literally throw it 100 times a game and never run it. I'm sure the same process with some physicality, but the feel of outside zone is critical, right? You implemented that and you built an entire system off of it as well. I had great success with that. But all of these, you're taking your mindset and your receiver coach's mindset of being students of the game and showing the players that like what I like to say, that it is cool to learn about the game. Right? It's fun to learn about. It doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't have to be, like you said, like it's, the way that probably, I know the way that when we came up, the way coaches coached then, it's great, but it was just very direct with there was not much artistry going on, right? And I think that you showing them that it's okay to fail, allowing failure, but to build off of failure, right? Hey, it's okay when you make the wrong cut on outside zone, or I don't get the full reach at the play side guard, or the receiver goes out when the quarterback thinks he should sit down. All of that is part of the learning process. And I think that to me, what separates students of the game is not only you're not taking this information strictly for yourself or for your entertainment or enjoyment, right? You're now applying it to others and allowing them to see. To me, that's what the beauty of the game is how these chess pieces move, whether it's outside zone, whether it's true Service Academy triple option, whether it's the McVay Shanahan tree of option routes, it doesn't matter, right? It's all, there's an artistry to this. And I think that you do that really well. So let's hit a couple buzz questions here on this idea. So now let's say, okay, you just came out of this season and it could be outside zone, it could be the option routes, but we're on the option route topic. So we'll just kind of keep it that. You had success with these concepts. What is your process now to enhance them? So you've seen them, you guys ran them well. Obviously, there's always ways to get better at it. But now what is your process to be like, okay, this is how we're going to improve it. And this is now how we're going to build further off of these ideas.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, that's literally the process that I'm going through right now. And, I mentioned earlier the adjusted efficiency evaluation. I've gone through our past concepts, and I went through our run game a few days ago. And for those that aren't aware of, it was a talk that you gave about this process of going through, the success or lack of success that you have with a concept, then going through actually clip by clip and what made that play unsuccessful. Is it correctable? And then coming out with your adjusted percentage. So like I'll just, as an example, I'll just use this year we had 26 drops across all of our concepts. I mentioned before we had 2 freshmen out there. I went through all of those drops. Of those 26 drops, 18 of them were on in-breaking routes. So I could be completely off my rocker, but I started looking at, okay, well, what is it about an in-breaking route for our players that made that tough? Well, maybe you could get hit across the middle, things like, did we not practice that enough? So I don't have the answer for that right yet, but 26 drops is like, okay, well, part of that is human error. It's just naturally going to happen. I think double down on that. Part of that is having a couple of 15-year-olds out there that they're playing varsity football now. But then the next part is, okay, how many of these were legitimate should be catches? And so what I've already done is, well, one thing that we can do is order new parts for our jugs machine so that make sure that we have that thing ready to roll for our guys to use whenever they want. I don't know if that's going to work or not, but that's a way that I can at least hope to maybe cut that number in half. And so that's an example that I was just looking at the other day of, okay, well, how do we cut that number in half? Regardless of what we're running. So, but yeah, the concepts that we're doing, choice was our number one concept this year that we ran the most. As far as drop back, our quick game was stick. And that became really our go-to. Whether it was empty, 3x1, 2x2, but we were just over 60% completion on stick. But in that, we had 4 drops, we had 4 missed assignments by the quarterback, and we had 1 tip ball. So ultimately, I think our adjusted efficiency could have been just over 80%. And truthfully, when I was doing it, I didn't even realize that we threw that 42 times. And so that was our number one concept. And that also proves to me that that's something that is fairly simple, to a fairly simple concept to be able to execute. It's not asking a ton of the quarterback to just other than just be right in the decision. The ball is not a terribly hard ball to throw. So, information like that. We had 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions on that concept. This was the next interesting part, was looking at our goof concept, which is essentially that slot option, get into a smash look. We were 60% completion there, but that was the only concept where we had more than 3 touchdowns of all the different concepts that we ran. So then I looked at, okay, well, when we needed to score, we ran goof and we scored with it. And so that was a really interesting process to go through of, okay, how successful are we actually with these things? And the times that we're not successful, what is it exactly? Is it something that I have the ability to create a solution for? Or is it, hey, we dropped the ball? So that the adjusted efficiency has been a phenomenal process to really go into, of trying to figure out what we do well, what we don't do well, why, and then how we improve. So that's literally the process I'm in right now of going through ways to improve. So I'll say this year's going to be a little different. We're losing that 4-year starting quarterback. I don't know if we're going to be much of a throwing team this year. So it's going to be an interesting improvement process for sure.
Hence the importance of being a student of the game and being able to study all the different things. I got 2 more quick ones for you. So I think it's critical at any level, but certainly at high school. And I think this year will be a great example of this, but all throughout this process, how did you walk the line, especially when you're adding these option routes? Or last year when you said we're going to go full outside zone, which takes as many reps as option routes, right, to get correct. How do you walk the line of what's too much and what's not enough? How do you do that, especially in your role as a high school coach?
Yeah, so this year was a really good example for us. There's a couple different ways I can talk about this one. Is that first thing that comes to my mind is we lost a game this year 25-14 to a team that had a lot more players than we did. They were way bigger than we were, but we lost the game. Not to take anything away from them, they're a great program. We're going to play them next year. I'm looking forward to it. They're a good coaching staff, but we lost that game. And so that was a week that we were doing what we were doing, but we added a couple emotions. And it's a combination of some younger kids out there. We had an injury. We moved a running back out to receiver. I look at myself that week of like, we didn't need those things. We didn't need to add those motions. What we needed to do was to really just kind of buckle down, ride the ride, and trust that we're going to come out on the other end. But that was a very pivotal week for us that led us to being able to stay on the right side of the line, of not adding too much, which gets us, that was also a week where we really started to find an identity in the run game. So it was a blessing in a loss. From there, I think, going back to answer your question and using an example for inside zone for us this year, we ran inside zone 152 times. That by far blows any other run that we ran out of the water. We were almost 4.5 yards per carry. And from that week on, from that loss on, it was, okay, we're gonna run the football. We're going to run the football on inside zone, mix in a couple things. But from there, that next week, what happened was we got rid of the exit motion. We got rid of some of these other things. Well, we said we're going to commit to running inside zone with 2 running backs. And then what we were able to do is we would throw the bang. Then we would throw the open hitch. And we just really not slowed things down, but just kind of cooled off. Instead of being like, I'm going to out scheme all these guys. Look at how they play defense. We're going to cook them. It was, okay, let's run the ball. Let's get 3 yards. If we can get 3 to 4 yards, then we're going to take the 7-yard hitch. Then we're going to throw the bang. Then we're going to play action and we're going to run choice and we're going to gain 10 yards. So I think for us to really answer the questions, it took us going over the line and being wrong and me being wrong to then go back and be like, okay, this is, we need to get just really, really straightforward here. And so then week 10, actually, we won a game to get us into the playoffs. We had to win that game. We were down 20-0 and we won 34-20. And we threw the ball 9 times. We ran inside zone 38 times that game, various different ways. But I looked at my coaches and I was like, they looked at me, they know that I love to throw the ball. And they were like, Coach, we just ran the ball for 200 plus yards to get us into the state playoffs. So it took us doing too much and going over the line to say, all right, that was enough. I think I lost us that game because of that. Let's go back to really just being super, super simple. And it's the old school, just take what they give you, and trusting our guys and trusting a 4-year starting quarterback to say, hey, take the hitch when it's there, and throw the choice when it's there and all that. So,
well, I think, that's an example. Oftentimes I've had my examples of those, but that is the painful way to be a student of the game, but it's learning from that. And then I think going back to something you said earlier in the conversation, it sounds like to me you eliminated variables, right? Mm-hmm. Where obviously there's a lot of different layers and things you can put on it when it comes to motions and shifts and things like that. But, you can motion and shift your way out of good looks, which
absolutely
I've done that before. So I think that, that's just a sign of just good coaching and understanding what was needed at the time to be successful. Because at the end of the day, it's our jobs to put those kids in the best situations possible, which you certainly did. Found a new way to attack it, and then got the program into its first ever playoff appearance and the school's history, which is just a testament to me to everything that you represent. And I like to kind of end it the way I started, but to me, there are levels to everything. But being a student of the game, right? It's how do we continuously and feverishly pursue the best versions of ourselves, the things, the trends in the game, but better teaching, better ways to teach things, better ways to put guys in the situation. But to me, hearing the processes is what gets you the results and what makes you special. And I think where you've done it at, how you've done it over these years is what, every week you would send me a video and I just remember my man is in his bag, and I just would be so proud watching you work through it.
There was one clip too that it was just a little screen pass, but I text you the way the quarterback held the ball. We had a kind of a jet fake, and he had the ball behind his back. I'm like, dude, there's no high school kids not doing that. And that's a testament to him and all that. But it's the system and the culture and what we do every day. And I am preaching how that's important. And I remember being so jacked up to send that clip to you purely just based on the way the quarterback's performance was on that play. And all he did was throw a little 3-yard screen pass. So yeah, man, those are the things that are dude, they get me jacked up.
Keeps you coming back. It's like that golf swing that hits when you're shooting at 105 and finish with a par, and it's well, that'll keep. But no, that's I hope that, and I hope that people listening can hear that, because there's a lot more guys at all levels that have faced similar circumstances or will face similar circumstances to what you have. And like I said in the beginning, I think you're a genuine human. You're very humble, but your hunger, your obsession, your passion, it shows through every single time I talk to you. I think what I respect the most about you is you empower those around you. You're a true teacher of the game, and I can see it on the pictures that get displayed on your programs, Twitter or Instagram. But there's a belief and an excitement like you said, in the place that you are working at. And to me, it all comes back to what made me really excited to get to know you, is just that passion you have for learning about the game. And hopefully through this, people can hear the processes that you utilize and some of the missteps, because we all have examples of that. But I hope you know that no matter what level you're coaching at, I think you're as good of a teacher and ball coach and student of the game as I've met out there. And super proud to be able to have you in my circle, and excited to see the next iteration of it. And I've really enjoyed this conversation. But
yeah, man, thank you. Likewise. It's I appreciate our connection, relationship, what it's evolved into, and doing this. Like it's oftentimes like, well, why would anybody want to listen to me? But it's really cool, and yes, the obsession is real, and a lot to improve on. But there's nothing else on planet Earth that I would rather be doing than coaching football. I really wanted to win that state playoff, that first round, just to keep being around our guys every day. And I told them that, and that was the immediate feeling I had. I was like, dang, like now what am I going to do? I don't get to be around you guys every day. So, yeah, man, it's the coolest thing on planet Earth.
Well, Chet, you are one of the good ones, my friend. I've enjoyed this conversation, and I look forward to talking more this offseason and seeing just the next iteration of what you got going on.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Caleb. Appreciate it.
Thank you again for listening to the Coach and Coordinator podcast. As you've noticed, we now have a series of podcasts on the Coach and Coordinator Network. We're really excited about this series approach and what each different host brings to us. Plus, we have some roundtables, which essentially are hostless podcasts, starting with Think Tank. We recorded that first Think Tank with Dan Gonzalez, Dub Maddox, and Josh Herring, and I'll tell you, it was so detailed and so good in what they put into it. I know you're going to enjoy that series, as well as all the other series we have on the Coach and Coordinator Network. Be sure to follow all of our sponsors currently that Signature Championship rings, Modern Football Technology, and Titan GPS. Check out our 10% toolkit, where we highlight all of our partners and what they have available to you, as well as some special offers. The link to that is in the show notes. Check out our enhanced show notes at coachandcoordinator.com. We'll be adding content that works better on video or as a download. And follow us on X at Coach K. Grabowski.